Love is more than just a game for two. Two in love can make it. Take my heart and please don't break it. Love was made for me and you.
Hey, welcome to WBGR Sports Network and the Tom the Bomb Sports Talk Show. And this is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. If you don't think it's a great day, just try missing one. And we, L-O-V-E, love sports on the Tom the Bomb Show. I'm your host. The number here is 301-429-9247. Like I said, we got another fantastic show. As usual, we want to thank God for the new year and for the theme of 2024, which is the year of fixed purpose, okay? Hey gang, we're going to get on what we're going to be watching, but you know, it's that time of the year. It's Tom the Bomb's favorite time of the year. We getting right to it. We going right to NCAA Men's March Madness. We going right there, Coy. Alrighty. So the NCAA Men's March Madness starts tomorrow, Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. And we're going to start off with the NCAA tournament, what they call the first four, okay? The first four. Alrighty. So the first four, we're going to start off with the games that we're going to be talking about. Alrighty. So starting tomorrow, we got Abilene Christian Wildcats versus Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Now that game is going to be, it's to be determined as far as the time. Then we got number 16 Wagner Seahawks versus our local number 16 Howard Bisons at 6:40 p.m. Eastern. Go Howard. And then we got Texas Southern Tigers versus the Tarleton State Texans at 7 p.m. Eastern. And then we have number 10 Colorado State going up against our Virginia Cavaliers at 9:10 p.m. Eastern. Virginia should handle that game. Now on Wednesday, March 20th, Alabama A&M Bulldogs are going to be taking on the Austin Peay Governors. That game's also going to be determined on the time. Then we've got the Fort Wayne Mastodons versus Bowling Green Falcons. That also is to be determined on the time. And then we have number 16, Grambling State, making their first NCAA Big Dance. Congratulations to the Grambling Tigers. They're going to be facing off against Montana State Bobcats at 6:40 p.m. Eastern. Then we got the Colorado Buffaloes versus Boise State Broncos at 9:10 p.m. Eastern. So it's kicking off, which leads us right into Thursday night action. Well, not Thursday night, but just Thursday's action. First up is going to be the Michigan State Spartans. Tom Izzo team, always tough in the tournament, going to be taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs at 12:15 p.m. Eastern. Then we have number 11, the Duquesne Dukes versus number 6, BYU Cougars at 12:40 p.m. Eastern. Then we got number 14, the Akron Zips. It's going to be versus number 3, Creighton Blue Jays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Then we have number 15, Long Beach State. The Long Beach State 49ers are going to be taking on number 2, Arizona Wildcats at 2 p.m. Eastern. A lot of people like the Arizona Wildcats. A lot of people got them going real strong and hard. You know, a lot of people are picking them as a Final Four team. Then we got number 1, the University of North Carolina, the Tar Heels, number 1 seed in the West. They're actually scheduled to be determined because it depends on these play-in games who North Carolina is going to play. So we don't know who North Carolina is going to play, but it's going to be Thursday at 2:45 p.m. Eastern. Then we've got number 3, my Illinois Fighting Illini versus number 14, Morehead State Eagles at 3:10 p.m. Now, you know, traditionally the Big Ten just doesn't do well in this tournament, and particularly my Fighting Illini, Illinois, and for that matter, Purdue as well. So, you know, you have to take that with a grain of salt, but I'm going to be rooting for my Illini as they take on Morehead State in the first round. Then we have number 11, the Oregon Ducks versus number 6, South Carolina Gamecocks at 4 p.m. Then we've got number 10, the Nevada Wolfpack. It's going to be taking on number 7, the Dayton Flyers at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. And then number 7, Texas at 6:50 p.m. Eastern is going to be. That game is also going to be arranged. We don't know who they're going to be playing yet. Like I said, because you got to get the play-in games done first. So Texas doesn't know who they're going to be facing at this particular point. Then we have number 14, Oklahoma Golden Grizzlies. They're going to be versing number 3, Kentucky Wildcats at 7:10 p.m. Eastern. Now, for me, this is my sleeper team in the tournament. You say, look, Kentucky, they're blue bloods. This is my sleeper team because number 3 for Kentucky is kind of flying under the radar, but Calipari does such a good job of getting these guys to jail at the right time. I like Kentucky Wildcats as my sleeper pick, even though they're at number 3, they're a blue blood, okay? Then we got number 12, McNeese State. The McNeese State Cowboys will be facing number 5, the Gonzaga Bulldogs, who always play well in this tournament at 7:25 Eastern p.m. Then we have number 15, South Dakota State is going to be taking on number 2, the Iowa State Cyclones at 7:30 p.m. A lot of people like the Cyclones. A lot of people like Iowa State to at the very least to meet up with Connecticut, which is the number 1 seed in the East. But and my Illini is the number 3 seed, so that's the big game in that bottom bracket. Probably Illinois versus Iowa State. And hey, we'll just happen to see. That's the old Big Ten versus the old Big 8 for you guys out there who can go back a little while and remember when there was a true Big Ten and a true Big 8. Then we got number 15, the St. Peter's Peacocks. If you guys remember, they had a great run a few years back. Number 15, the St. Peter's Peacocks versus number 3, the Tennessee Volunteers. That game's going to be at 9:20 p.m. Eastern. And then we got the North Carolina State Wolfpack versus number 6, Texas Tech Red Raiders at 9:40 p.m. Eastern. Then we have number 13, the Sanford Bulldogs versus number 4, the Kansas Jayhawks at 9:55 p.m. That's another blue blood like Kentucky. Kansas with a number 4 seed. We're not used to seeing Kansas that low in the NCAA tournament, but it's still Kansas, okay? And then we have number 10, the Drake Bulldogs, is going to be taking on number 7, the Washington State Cougars at 10:05 p.m. And that's going to cover all the games, the beginning games from Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, man. It's just absolutely my favorite time. This is my favorite sporting event of all time, man. Not the Super Bowl, not the World Series, not the NBA Finals, not even World Cup. It's the NCAA Final Four. This is it. This is the big ticket. This is the best sporting event in sports. It's do or die. You win or you go home, and I love it. So let's spend a little bit of time talking about the top 4 seeds for the men's and women's NCAA tournament, for the NCAA, because they're both pretty much going to be going on at the same time. So let's start off with the top 4 seeds in the men. Like I mentioned earlier, Connecticut has the number 1 overall seed out of the East, and everyone is picking Connecticut to cut down the nets. Now you guys know how that goes when everybody is saying the same thing. That's pretty much a sure bet that you probably shouldn't go that way with your brackets. But I would say Connecticut is kind of like what the Boston Celtics are this year in the NBA. If you've been watching the NBA and you guys know Tom the Bomb hasn't. If you've been watching the NBA, you know that the Boston Celtics have the best team in the league. Well, let me say, they're playing like the best team in the NBA. But, there's still a guy out west that go by the name of the Joker, okay? So, but Connecticut is kind of like what Boston is right now. And they look good. They clearly look like the best team in the tournament. And everybody, and I'm talking about all the experts, Everybody is taking Connecticut. It's like, if you can go back a little while, if you remember how dominant that the UNLV running Rebels when Tark was coaching them, that was like a sure thing with UNLV. They won it one year, and then Duke upset them the second year. But that's what this Connecticut team kind of looks like. Although I will say that this year in college basketball, and I do love college basketball, there's been quite a bit of parity. And no team has really just dominated and stayed at top. But through the whole year, just analyzing everything through the whole year, everybody likes Connecticut cutting down the nets. At the very least, you got to have Connecticut in your Final Four. And, I don't know about that because, like I said, I'm going to be rooting for my Fighting Illini. And, they never do well in the tournament. But, if they do well, they could end up facing Connecticut. But the sure bet out of the East is what I'll say about this year's NCAA tournament is, it's pretty much going to be chalk. And what do we mean by chalk? That means you can pretty much count on the number 1 and number 2 seeds to be there to win. Now, if we can just go back to last year, for the first time in history, none of the number 1 seeds made it to the Final Four. That had never happened in the history of the tournament. But I'm going to tell you, that's like winning the lottery. That ain't going to happen this year, okay? These number 1 seeds, I think with the exception of maybe North Carolina, I think they're really true number 1 seeds. So Connecticut is number 1 in the East. In the South, we have the Houston Cougars. And this is Houston and Purdue, which we're going to talk about. They were both number 1 seeds last year. It's the first time that 2 teams were number 1 seeds in the following year. 2 teams. So Houston is the number 2 seed overall, and they're going to be out of the South region. And Houston is pretty much like that team we saw last year. They're probably the best defensive team in the country, but because of that, they work so hard on defense, they really don't have an offensive star. There's a saying that Houston's best shot is going to be their second shot, okay? In other words, they fire it up there, and then they crash the boards, and they try to get the offensive rebound and put it back in. So it's like their second shot is usually better than their first shot. But, they have that shutdown defense. And what's the old analogy in sports? That defense wins championships? Well, you got to put some points on the board too, okay? So that's your little, it has you in between on the Houston Cougars. At number 3, we've got the Purdue Boilermakers out of the Midwest region. And Purdue was a number 1 seed last year, and they lost to a number 15 seed, and that's just unacceptable. That's just totally that's big time choking. And unfortunately, that's what the Big Ten does in this tournament. I'm a huge Big Ten fan, and they play, Michigan State and Michigan and Illinois and Purdue and they Rutgers, and they play such a Maryland. They play such a rugged brand of basketball that they beat up on each other the whole season. And then when they get to the tournament, I'm talking about all the Big Ten teams, they run into that team out of nowhere that can run and gun, and they got guys that can knock down the threes. And every last one of these Big Ten teams always end up choking and getting upset by, I don't want to say a no name, but case in point, Purdue's a number 1 seed last year, and they lost to a number 15 seed. That's totally unacceptable. But they probably have the best player in the country in Zach Edey, the 7'4", 7'5", whatever he is. He's a 7-footer, let's put it that way. And he'll probably be the number 1 draft pick going into the NBA. So, Purdue's a number 1 seed. They have the talent, but do they have the heart to pull it off, okay? And then at number 4, we have North Carolina, the Tar Heels in the West. And they won the ACC, and the champion of the ACC is going to be a number 1 seed, whether it's Duke or whether it's North Carolina or whomever. It's going to be a number 1 seed. But case in point, they won the ACC championship, but they lost the tournament to North Carolina State. Because that's how the ACC is, man. You just never know. So that's the top 4 seeds on the men's side. Number 1, Connecticut. Number 2, the Houston Cougars. Number 3, the Purdue Boilermakers. And number 4, the North Carolina Tar Heels. Very, very well-rounded team. They could be dangerous. They have the potential to win it all. Like I said, when you're the champion of the ACC, you ain't no chump. Okay. So they have the ability to pull it off. I like their point man. He does pretty good. Hey, how you doing, Mother Wig? Let's move over to the women's top 4 seeds. And I kind of told you guys I'm Tom the Bomb is just such a huge fan of the women's game, man. I love it. I love the women's game. It's really, really exciting, and the skill level is just getting better and better and better and better. So let's start off with number 1, the ladies South Carolina Gamecocks, and Don Staley has this team poised and primed. This is the 2nd year in a row that South Carolina, that's Iowa, that's not South Carolina, Coy, that Don Staley has the South Carolina Gamecocks going into this tournament a perfect 32-0. So the last 2 seasons, the South Carolina Gamecocks are 64-0 going into the tournament. Now, of course, last year, they got upset by Iowa and Caitlin Clark, and they haven't lost a game since they lost in the semifinals to the Iowa Hawkeyes last year in the tournament. So just like Connecticut, South Carolina is, if you got anybody other than Connecticut on the men's side and South Carolina on the women's side winning it, you really don't have a good shot, because the thing with South Carolina is they really don't have any weaknesses. They don't have any weaknesses. Any kind of team, any kind of sport, you say they don't have any weaknesses. No, they don't have any weaknesses. And on top of that, they have tremendous depth. So in basketball, if you got 1 or 2 star players, you can always get in foul trouble. I mean, case in point, if Caitlin Clark gets in foul trouble with the Lady Iowa Hawkeyes, they're done. They're done immediately. But with this South Carolina Gamecock team, not only do they have no weaknesses, but they go 9, 10, 11 deep. So even if their stars get in foul trouble, the people coming off the bench, you don't want no parts of them. You don't want no pods of those Lady Gamecocks. Come on, man. You don't go 64-0 and not be balling, man. And the thing that I love the most about basketball is a team sport, and the best team wins. Not necessarily the best players, but the best team. And South Carolina has the best players, and they have the best team. So like I said, they have no weaknesses, and I personally think they have the best coach. Okay, so it's going to be hard for South Carolina not to win the national championship this year. But hey, they ran into a hot Caitlin Clark last year, and I don't think they're going to run into it this year because of the way the tournament and the brackets are set up. But it can happen. You can't play this game on paper. You got to play it on the court. So let's go to number 2, which leads us to the Iowa Lady Hawkeyes and the sensational, okay, Coy, now we want the Lady Hawkeyes and the sensational Caitlin Clark, man. Dude, I'm just a huge Caitlin Clark fan, man. And I'm going to tell you, this team that Iowa has, it's nowhere near, it's not even close to the team that they had last year. So this team this year is not as good as the team last year, but Caitlin Clark she's just that sensational. She's upped her scoring, and what I love, and she's not just a ball hawk where she's going to shoot every time she comes down. She's leading the country in scoring, and she's leading the country in assist. So she's just doing it all, man. She's doing it all. So as a matter of fact, I really didn't think that they deserved a number 1 seed, but her play, it just literally propelled the Lady Hawkeyes to the number 2 seed. I really didn't think that Iowa deserved an overall number 2, and I really didn't even think they deserved a number 1 seed. I thought Iowa would be a number 2 seed coming into this tournament for the ladies. But hey, not only are they a number 1 seed, they're the number 2 seed overall. So let's go to the number 3 seed, the USC Trojans, the Lady Trojans, and freshman sensation Juju Watkins. You just like saying that name, right? Y'all know, yeah. Juju Watkins, the freshman sensation. She's bringing the pride back to the Lady Trojans. You know, when women basketball really started, you know, the greatest female basketball player of all time is Cheryl Miller. She's the GOAT. I don't want to hear nothing else. Cheryl Miller is the GOAT. If you don't know, you better ask somebody. You better Google it. You better look it up. You know, what lady scored 100 points in a game? Come on now. So Juju is kind of bringing back the prestige and the honor to the Lady Trojans, because you know they were dominant early when women's basketball really started to get roots and take off. So there's a lot of nostalgia and tradition with the USC Lady Trojans, and Juju Watkins, freshman sensation, has brought that back. Now they're not a one-man team, because in the tournament she didn't have a good game, but it's like I said, basketball is a team sport, so they have a good team there, the Lady Trojans. But you got to have that spearhead, just like Caitlin Clark is the stirs the drink in Iowa. Juju Watkins is stirring that drink in Southern California. So they're the number 3 seed. And then at number 4, you got your old standby, your old reliable, or as you normally say about the blue blood of the ladies game, the Tennessee Volunteers. I got Texas down here, but okay, I think I got Texas down here. But they're coming in at the number 4 seed. Go ahead and bring up those photos. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's not Tennessee. It is Texas. Sorry about that, guys. It's the Lady Longhorns, and they have great tradition as well. And the Lady Longhorns come in at the number 4 seed. Another great team. So, man, this is really going to be exciting. The tournament, we got our top 4 seeds on the men's side, our top 4 seeds on the women's side. And for those out there who are doing your brackets, who are looking for help from Tom the Bomb, it's a dice roll, man. But I'm going to tell you, you would not be wrong at all to pick Connecticut on the men's side and to pick South Carolina on the women's side. And that's just how it is. But if we want to watch it to see what happens and see if anybody can pull the upset. But if anybody other than Connecticut on the men's side win and anybody other than South Carolina on the women's side win, that's going to be an upset. Because those are the 2 clearly best teams on the men's side, the Connecticut Huskies. On the women's side, the South Carolina Lady Gamecocks. That's it. Alrighty, let's go right into our next session of the show. We got a good show. What we're going to be talking about now is the NFL free agency. And so, hey, you know, if you guys remember last week, I mean, right up to the point of us going on air, my phone was just dinging and dinging because all of these trades were coming in. My notes said Kirk Cousins is talking with the Falcons, and then my phone dings and says Kirk Cousins just signed a 4-year, $180 million deal with the Atlanta Falcons. So, I mean, it was just a frenzy last week. I mean, it was actually really exciting. And man, it's just amazing how the NFL dominates even when the season is over, man. If you don't think the NFL owns the sports world, you got another thing coming. Like they said in the movie, they own a day that used to belong to the church. Yes, Sunday used to belong to the church, but now it belongs to the NFL. So we're going to talk about the NFL free agency, and we're going to talk about your team and what grade they have. Let me rephrase that. You know, we can't get through all 32 teams. Can't do that. Just don't have the time. And maybe if we just did one show, but I can't. So what we're going to do is today we're going to do 16, and then maybe next week we'll try to give you the grades on the other 16. So let's go ahead and get started in that and jump in it. So at number 1, and I only got one team with an A+, and the team with the A+ is the Atlanta Falcons. And the Atlanta Falcons added quarterback Kirk Cousins from the Vikings. They also added a wide receiver, Darnell Mooney, I think from the Bears. They also added wide receiver Rondale Moore. Now, in this free agency, now this is interesting. I want you to understand this. In free agency, it's just as important that you keep and re-sign your key players as much as going out and getting other free agent players. So that's just as important. So a lot of times they say, well, they didn't go out and sign anybody new. But if you keep your stars, you know, that's what's really, really the most important. So with the Atlanta Falcons, like I said, they added Kirk Cousins, they added Darnell Mooney, they added Rondell Moore both at the wide receiver position, but they also re-signed Liam McCullough. And so now the Falcons have a complete offense. They have an explosive running back in Bijan Robinson, and now they have two incredibly athletic, gifted catchers, pass catchers, in tight end Kyle Pitts and in wide receiver Drake London. Now I want to talk a little bit about Drake London because Drake London is going to be an All-Pro. With the addition of Kirk Cousins, Drake London is getting ready to soar to the superstar status at the wide receiver position. For when you guys get ready to do your fantasy football coming up next year for next season, don't sleep on Drake London. Drake London is going to have the kind of year that Justin Jefferson has. He's going to have the kind of year that Tyreek Hill has. He's going to have the kind of year that Adams has, Devontae Adams. So he's going to, this year, with the addition of Kirk Cousins, that's what that's going to do for Drake London. Kirk's going to be playing in a stadium, and this is key because he played in an indoor stadium in Minnesota, and that's key. And now he gets traded he signs with the Falcons, which also play at a dome. And then there's three other teams that have domes in that division. And then the fourth team that doesn't have a dome is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who play in Tampa Bay, where the weather is always gorgeous. So this is huge for Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. And he immediately votes him that I'm telling you right now that the Atlanta Falcons will win their division this upcoming season, and they will be in the playoffs. So Dark Knight, that means they're going to topple your Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield and off the South Championship. It's going to happen. So the Atlanta Falcons is the only team I'm giving an A+ to. Alrighty, the Philadelphia Eagles get an A. The Philadelphia Eagles added Saquon Barkley. They also added defensive end Bryce Huff. They signed safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and this is huge because as we found out at the end of the season, man, the Eagles couldn't cover anybody. So they needed really real help. So C.J. Gardner is going to come in. They also signed linebacker Devine White. And then they picked up quarterback Kenny Pickett from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, you got to have a decent backup. It's funny because Kenny Pickett was like, I don't want to be in Pittsburgh because I don't want to be a backup. I'm not a backup type of. Well, you're going to Philadelphia. You're going to be a backup there because you surely aren't moving out the quarterback in Philadelphia. Now, with the Eagles, their key re-signings was guard Landon Dickerson. And like I said, C.J. Gardner-Johnson is the much-needed help they had at corner. Now, let's talk about Saquon Barkley for a minute. Saquon Barkley is going to have his best season ever as a pro behind that offensive line of the Eagles. Saquon Barkley has always been a good running back, but his whole tenure in New York, he never had an offensive line, and he never really had a really good quarterback. He really didn't. So Saquon Barkley is going to be, we talk about fantasy, Saquon Barkley could be number 1, number 2, number 3 pick overall in fantasy because behind that offensive line in Philadelphia, he's going to have his best season ever. So because of that, the Philadelphia Eagles get an A with the adding of Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Devin White, and Kenny Pickett. But more importantly, keeping guard Landon Dickerson, man, because this game is still a simple game. You got to block, you got to tackle, you got to stop the run, you got to be able to run. It's still real simple. The Pittsburgh Steelers also get an A. They added QB Russell Wilson. More importantly, well, that's important, but they also landed linebacker Patrick Queen. And man, the ultimate move is when you can add and subtract at the same time. So they added Patrick Queen, and they subtracted him from their division rivals, the Baltimore Ravens. That's a big loss. They also added cornerback Dante Jackson. They also added wide receiver Van Jefferson from the Rams. And let's talk about, because they just signed, yep, you got it, QB Justin Fields. Now let's talk about that, Justin Fields. Now the Bears GM, here's what I say. The Bears GM was playing poker. And he was bluffing, and everybody in the NFL called his bluff. Now, what they really should have done if they knew they had the number one pick. And I think they knew they wanted Caleb Williams. What they should have done is they should have traded Justin Fields last year. Now, me personally, I don't think they should have traded him at all. I think they should have used that pick on something else and not take Caleb Williams. But anyway, with that being said, he said he wanted to do right by Justin Fields. And they pretty much asked Justin Fields where he wanted to go. And Justin Fields says, I want to go to Pittsburgh. I can go if I have to spend a year behind Russell Wilson. But who's to say he could? Because the Bears' compensation depends on how much Justin Fields is going to play. If he takes 51% of the snaps, then they go from a 6th-round pick to a 4th-round pick. But the Bears basically waited too late. They let all these other teams fill their quarterbacks' positions without being able to get rid of Justin Fields. And here's the thing. The other teams knew that the Bears were going to get rid of Justin Fields, so it's like, why should I give you something for something we know you're going to throw away and discard? And that's basically what happened. But I think this is going to be a good landing spot for Russell Wilson and for Justin Fields. They're going to be with the best coach, I think, in the NFL, and Mike Tomlin. And, Mike Tomlin thing is we want people that want to be here. We don't want people that don't want to be here, like Kenny Pickens, and that's why they let him go. So I think between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, I think the Steelers are going to get it done. He's never had a losing season as the head coach, but they aren't winning in the playoffs. I think this move could at least get them a playoff win. Now, we got people in Pittsburgh which are going off the ledge. They're not an AFC championship team. They're not a Super Bowl team. That's not the case, okay? But this does put them in a position to where they're good for the next 5-6 years and maybe even longer if Justin Fields pans out like I think he will. Now, their key re-signings was defensive back Miles Kilbrew. And the Steelers, unlike Dallas, like I said, are going all in this offseason. They're also in the process of talking to Mike Williams from the Los Angeles Chargers because they did lose a wide receiver themselves. So they're looking at Mike Williams. But also, the Steelers are also one of the best teams in the NFL at developing wide receiver talent. So even though they let a good wide receiver go, I don't think that's going to hurt them. Like I said, their quarterback room looks strong for the first time since they had the big boy there. Okay, the next team that gets an A- is the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, and of course the Baltimore Ravens key addition. You hear this, KT? The key addition is my main man, running back King Derrick Henry. But we're going to get to Derrick Henry in a second. But they also re-signed defensive lineman Justin Mutabuki and Nelson Aguilar. Those were key signmen. Now, Justin led all defensive tackles in sacks last year with 13 sacks, also with 33 QB hits, and also he led in quarterback pressures. So this is a really, really key re-signing. And like I told you earlier, yes, you want to pick up people on the free agent market, but what's just as important is that you sign your key free agents. And that's what they've done with their defensive tackle. Now let's talk about, they brought in the King Henry. This is a significant upgrade, giving them the most dynamic backfield in the NFL. The reason that the Ravens get an A- instead of an A+ is because they did lose linebacker Patrick Queen, and that dropped them from an A+ to an A-. But the Ravens, the way the Steelers develop receivers, the Ravens develop inside linebacker position better than any team in the NFL. So when they let Patrick Queen walk, they got something up their sleeve, because the Steelers always have linebackers. Like in college, Penn State is called linebacker U. Well, in the NFL, linebacker U is in Pittsburgh. I mean, if you just go down their history, some of the best linebackers to ever play in the NFL have come out of Pittsburgh. So I think they're the best team at developing inside linebacker position. So I think they're going to be okay. And like I said, that's the reason they didn't get an A+, they got an A-. But man, with signing of Derrick Henry, this puts the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC Championship game. The only question is, can they beat Mother Wig's Kansas City Chiefs? Can they beat Patrick Mahomes? You know, that's the only question. And if they do this right, because for the last 3 or 4 years, Lamar Jackson has been the leading rusher on the Baltimore Ravens. Listen, man, I've been shouting this from the rooftops. your quarterback cannot be your leading rusher. That's a recipe for failure. Your quarterback can't be your leading rusher. Now, with Derrick Henry, there's going to be no excuse for Lamar Jackson to be running the way he runs. Now, he can still run and break your back, but man, if you give, and here's the thing, the Ravens run more than any team in the NFL. You know, something happened crazy in the playoffs where they just like, playoffs? Yeah. Something crazy happened in the playoffs where they just didn't run the ball against Mother Wigs, Kansas City Chiefs, and nobody could understand that. But if they do this right, and if they give King Henry 22 to 25 carries a game, because when King Henry gets 22 to 25 carries a game, he automatically goes over 100 yards rushing. And if you can get 100-yard rushing from one guy for the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson, that's Lions and Tigers and Bears. Oh my. Okay. So the Ravens get an A-, A+ because they lost Patrick Quinn. The next A- is the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers get an A-. They added running back Josh Jacobs. They added safety Xavier McKinney, who was the best safety on the free agent market. And they re-signed their cornerback kick returner, Keyshawn Nixon, and cornerback Corey Ballantyne, and also tight end Tyler Davis as well. The Packers won the free agency on the first day because they cleaned up on day one with a $40 million dead cap money off their books from Aaron Rodgers. So that $40 million dropped off their books this year with Aaron Rodgers. So that makes them a winner in free agency right away from day one. So the Packers get an A-. The Houston Texans, team that I like, gets a B+. They added running back Joe Mixon, defensive end Danielle Hunter, defensive lineman Denise Autry, linebacker Azeez Al-Shur. One of the better cornerbacks that was on the market as well was Jeff Okudah. I love him. I was hoping my 49ers would land him. And then they re-signed tight end Dalton Schultz and their kicker Kyle Fairbairn. Their signings will make them stronger on defense, and they'll be able to stand up against a team like the Ravens with that type of ground game that pounded team that basically eliminated them from the playoffs. So the Texans upgraded on offense, and they upgraded on defense. That DeMarco, he's a great defensive coach, and this Houston Texan team is going to be better this year than they was last year. So they get a B+. Next is the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns get a B+. They added wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. They re-signed defensive end Zadarius Smith and guard Michael Dunn. Jerry Jeudy is going to help Amari Cooper spread the field. And the signing of Jameis Winston to back up Deshaun Watson, that was a shrewd move. Okay, that's a really, really shrewd. I really like it. I think that's a move that's kind of going under the radar because we know how many injuries that Cleveland had last. I think they had 4 or 5 different quarterbacks. But getting Jameis Winston for practically nothing, man, that's a great move by their management and GM. So the Browns get a B+. The Detroit Lions get a B+. The Detroit Lions are already right there, but they also added cornerback Carlton Davis. They added defensive end Marcus Davenport and defensive tackle DJ Reader. Their key re-signings, and this is really key, their offensive lineman Graham Glasgow, linebackers Jalen Reeves-Maybin, cornerback Emmanuel Mosley, and their kicker Michael Badley. The Lions keep that smash mouth offensive line intact. And I'm telling you, man, that's the key to football, your offensive line and your defensive line. And Detroit had probably one of the best offensive lines in all of the NFL, and they were able to re-sign those guys and keep that offensive line together. So that's key. They get a B+. The Jacksonville Jaguars get a B+. They added QB Mac and Cheese, and his Mac and Cheese ain't like, he didn't do well in New England, but I think the thing that's been holding them back is Trevor Lawrence. And I think Mac and Cheese is going to put a little heat on Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence has to play better. Their key signings was they signed wide receiver Gabe Davis, and to me, he was one of the top receivers that was on the market. Man, I can't believe Buffalo didn't re-sign that guy. I guess it was just a money thing. It was. But Gabe Davis is going to help the Jacksonville Jaguars. They also signed center Mitch Morse, safety Darnell Savage, defensive tackle their list Eric Armstead from my 49ers, and wide receiver KJ Osborne. Their key re-signings was defensive end Josh Allen, which is huge. and guard Ezra Cleveland. Okay, let's go to Mother Wiggs, Kansas City Chiefs. Mother Wiggs, Kansas City Chiefs gets a B+. They added punter Matt Araiza. He's a great kicker. Don't overlook that because your punter is a defensive weapon. People kind of don't understand that. They also added tight end Irv Smith, and their big re-signing is wide receiver Marquise Hollywood Brown. You got to get a receiver that can catch. How about that? If you get a receiver, one of the top things he should be able to do is he should be able to catch. So they've signed Marquise Brown, and they still need to sign another wide receiver. That's why they're just at a B+, because I'm positive that they aren't done, and they got to go out and get another wide receiver. Even if it's somebody like OBJ, they got to bring in somebody that can catch. Let's go local here. Let's talk about Felix Washington Commanders. And the Washington Commanders get a B+, which is a great grade in free agency. They added running back Austin Eckler, and this is the best signing that the Commanders have made in 20 years. In 20 years, this is the best signing they've made with Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler is like a smaller version of Walter Payton. And you say, Walter Payton, man. Look, man, this guy does everything. He can block. He can catch. He surely can run. He's a smart football player. You Commander fans, you Washington Commander fans are going to fall in love with Austin Eckler immediately. Now, I also like Robinson. They got a good running back in Robinson, but in the NFL, you got to have two, man. It's just like quarterback. You got to have more than one quarterback. You got to have two running backs because you just can't. Everybody can't be Derrick Henry where he can just take the load on all by himself. You got to have two. So Austin Eckler is going to make Robinson that much more effective. But you watch what Tom DeBomb's telling you. You guys are going to fall in love with Austin Eckler, and this is the best signing the Commanders have made in 20 years. Not even close. Not even close. Now, the Commanders had the most cap space in all of the NFL, so the new GM is using it. They've signed 12 players already. They also added center Tyler Badias. They had a defensive end, Dorrance Armstrong, tight end Zach Ertz, which is really going to help their new quarterback, offensive lineman Nick Allegretti, linebacker Frankie Lavu, and this, I'm telling you how much you're going to like Austin Eckler. You're going to love Frankie Lavu. Kicker Brandon McManus. Got to have a kicker, man. Special teams is so important. Brandon McManus is going to shore up that kicking game for the Commanders. They also added veteran quarterback Marcus Mariota. I love that signing. Defensive lineman Celine Farrell. Safety Jeremy Chin. You're going to love him. You're going to love him, Commanders fan. And my man, linebacker Bobby Wagner. Now, the Washington Commanders had the worst defense in the NFL, giving up almost 31 points a game and giving up 389 yards a game. And they also allowed the most passing touchdowns in all the NFL in 39. But Frankie Lavu and Jeremy Chin, they're going to play big roles in turning that around. So B+ for the Washington Commanders. I applaud. They seem to be getting it right. They seem to be doing it right. Now all you got to do is bring in Jaden Daniels from LSU, and the Commanders going to be back. Commanders going to be back. I'm not holding my breath, but the Baltimore Colts get a B. They added comeback player of the year, quarterback Joe Flacco. And like I told you guys a couple of weeks ago, they re-signed Michael Pittman Jr. They had to do that. Defensive end, Tyquan Lewis, linebacker Zaire Franklin, and defensive tackle Grover Stewart. They also re-signed cornerback Kenny Moore II. And like I said, their key re-signing was Michael Pittman Jr. They just had to do it. They had to do it. My San Francisco 49ers get a B. They added defensive end Leonard Floyd. They let Eric Armstead go, so they had to replace him. And Leonard Floyd is actually an upgrade over Eric Armstrong. Defensive end, Yuta Gross-Matos. Defensive tackle, Jordan Elliott. Defensive tackle, Malik Collins. And the key signings was offensive tackle Colin McKivitz, quarterback Brandon Allen, and safety George Odom. Now, for winning organizations out there, look what my 49ers did. Look where their focus was. Defensive line, defensive line, defensive line, offensive line. That's how you win. That's how you win. The Bengals get a B. They added safety Geno Stone and running back Zach Moss. They also added tight end Mike Gesicki, and they franchise tag. So basically, they're re-signing wide receiver T. Higgins. They also re-signed guard Cody Ford. They've strengthened the back end of their secondary and subtracted from the Ravens by signing Geno Stone, who was second in the NFL with seven interceptions in the NFL. So the Bengals get a B. The Buffalo Bills get a C+. They added my favorite quarterback in the world, Mitchell Trubisky. Also linebacker Nicholas Morrow and wide receiver Curtis Samuel from the Commanders. They re-signed left tackle Deion Dawkins. They re-signed guard David Edwards. And they re-signed safety Taylor Rapp, defensive end A.J. Espinosa, and defensive tackle DeQuan Jones. These are great re-signings. Because the Bills had a $37 million cap deficit, they had to release 6 players. Like I mentioned earlier, wide receiver Gabe Davis, defensive end Leonard Floyd, who went to my 49ers, safety Jordan Poyer, which is one of the best safeties in the league, defensive back Syrian Neal, and running back Naheem Hines, and cornerback Cam Lewis. So they were in a money crunch, which is one of the reasons they didn't bring back Gabe Davis, but they lost a lot on defense as well. So this is going to be a make or break year for their coach. If the Bills don't get over this year, look for their coach to be fired. He's on the hot seat. Let's talk with Gus's Chicago Bears. The Bears get a C. Okay, they added running back DeAndre Swift, whom I like. They added offensive lineman Ryan Bates. They added safety Kevin Byard and safety Jonathan Owens. And they also added tight end Gerald Everett as well. So those are our 16 teams. Those are our grade. We'll try to get to the next ones. But hey, look, let's take a break. And then we're going to be right back, and we're going to update you on some NBA scores. But let's take a break, and we'll be right back.
When it comes to cost and quality, you simply cannot do better than Window Nation. For about half the cost of national brands, you get equal if not better quality, saving you thousands of dollars. Right now, get 2 free windows with every 2 you buy. There's no limit. Plus, put no money down, make no payments, and pay no interest for 24 months. Get a free in-home estimate and we'll give you a free gas card. Go to windownation.com for additional details or call 866-95-NATION.
Sheltered by the Sea of Cortez, Danzante Bay is a pure and peaceful oasis, an uncrowded retreat where your options are as vast as your views. If you're seeking a vacation that defines luxury and the true relaxation, look no further than Villa del Palmar at the Islands of Loreto. A splendor of true Mexican hospitality effortlessly blends with rich materials and insatiable comforts to bring guests the ideal home away from home experience. With its quiet beaches, scenic vistas, rich history, and an astounding surrounding natural habitat, you'll feel as though you've been swept off to paradise. Not to be outdone, Reese Jones has crafted TPC Danzante Bay, a brilliant, multi-themed 18-hole golf course that runs over and through valleys, arroyos, dunes, and foothills. From every angle, striking images of the islands of Loreto and the surrounding mountain range take your breath away, while the challenging yet rewarding Baja Golf Course beckons you to return for more. It is an honor and my pleasure to welcome you to the world's most beautiful sunset and so much more.
Talking Windows with Harley and Aaron and special guest Mina.
As a business owner, I only partner with the best.
That's definitely Window Nation.
And experience matters, Harley.
Well, Mina, we have installed over 1 million windows.
And you guys have the best customer service.
Check. 97% customer satisfaction. Plus the best deals.
Now, buy 2 windows, get 2 free with no limit. Plus, put no money down, make no payments, and pay no interest for 24 months.
That's why I'm proud to partner with Window Nation.
The perfect fit.
And we're back. And it's March Madness, man. Tom the Bomb's favorite time of the year, but we are getting ready to go into our NBA updates and scores. But man, I'm just so hyped and excited about March Madness, man. It's just it's just my favorite time of the year for sports, man. Got the Masters coming up. It's that time of the year, man. Alrighty, so let's go with our NBA updates and scores. You know, Tom the Bomb tried to watch an NBA game yesterday, and I was watching, the Denver Nuggets because I love the Joker versus the Mavericks, and great game, man. Yeah, Gus. A left-handed hook at the end of the game. Kyrie with a left-handed hook. Man, what a game as the Mavericks defeat the Denver Nuggets 107-105. Great game, exciting game, the kind of game that I hope to see, but I don't always see, because not only did I watch Denver and the Mavericks, but I also watched the Suns and the Bucks, and this is the typical reason I really don't get into it. The Bucks defeated the Suns 140-129. You guys remember that commercial? Where's the beef? Where's the beef? Where's the D? Where's the D? Are these guys listen, man? You know, with KD and Beal and Booker. Man, that's a trifecta of offense. But the Suns ain't going nowhere, man, because them guys ain't playing no D, man. If you ask them to recite the alphabet, the Phoenix Suns would go A, B, C, E, F, G. Because they don't know nothing about D, man. 129-140, man. Dame and look, and the Bucks were without Giannis. Come on, man. How you gonna give up 140 points and Giannis ain't even playing, man? A, B, C, E, F, G. Then we had the Miami Heat versus the Detroit Pistons, and the Heat prevailed 104-101. Man, the Pistons just, there's the reason that the Pistons are losing the games they're losing, because they just do dumb stuff down the stretch, man. The Pistons should have won this game, but just dumb basketball cost them this game. This game I took a look at just for funsies, because the Boston Celtics, near St. Patrick's Day was playing our Washington Wizards here, and my whole point of paying any attention to this game was I just wanted to see how many the Celtics were going to beat them by. That's what I was concerned with, and the Celtics knew that they were going to beat the Wizards, so they didn't even go with their big guns. And this guy, I don't even know his name, but he gets off the bench and he scores 30 points in an NBA record under 23 minutes. He scores 30 points in under 23 minutes. Come on, man. As the Celtics beat our Washington Wizards 130-104. But hey, the Wizards won a game like about 3 or 4 days ago. So they don't have to win another game for a month and a half. That's just how it goes with them. We got the San Antonio Spurs versus the New Jersey Nets. The Spurs prevailed 122-115. Man, this Wemby is, man, this kid is everything that they advertised him to be. It's almost like when LeBron James broke into the league as a high schooler with all this hype, King James, and I watched his first NBA game and he scored 25 points and had 12 rebounds, and I said, that kid is legit. For an 18-year-old with all that expectation on him to come in and have that kind of game in his first NBA game, 25 points, 12 rebounds, I say that kid is legit. Man, this Wemby puts me in remembrance of King James, man. The things that he's doing, I remember, I can't remember who told, matter of fact, it was somebody told me about him, and I ain't gonna call no names, but when they start telling me about him, I know they don't really know that much about basketball and sports, so when they was saying it, I was like, yeah, you're right. It's like, this guy is 7'5", and he got handles like KD, and he could shoot like KD, and I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I got some land I want to sell you too. But man, this dude Wemby, woo, he all that in a bag of chips, man. I love the way he plays both ends of the floor, and more importantly, he's just a defensive juggernaut, man. That block that he made at the end of the game to seal and win the game for the Spurs, and you can't stop him from scoring. And then he'll go outside and knock a three down on you. And then he, at 7'5", he's got handles. You ain't supposed to have handles when you 7'5", man. This guy, man, listen, the only thing that can stop this kid is an injury. This guy's going to be the face of the NBA for the next 10 to 15 years. I am so impressed with this guy. He's hands down going to be Rookie of the Year. But, man, this kid is starting to gather some MVP votes. He's not going to get it because the Spurs are that bad. But this Wemby is that good. He's everything advertised and more. As they say, all that in a bag of chips. So the Spurs prevailed 122-115. Then we got the Raptors versus the Magic. The Magic prevailed 111-96. And then we had the Atlanta Hawks beat the Clippers 110-93. The Clippers couldn't throw it in the ocean. If the Clippers had fell out of a boat, they couldn't hit water, man. They just had one of those nights where all their guns were off, man. And I hope it's not a foreshadowing of the playoffs, because that's kind of what I think about with the Clippers, because they got 4 Hall of Famers, but it's just something about them. I always wondered about the chemistry, and then after the All-Star, right before the All-Star break, they looked like they was the best team in the league. So, but they lost to Atlanta Hawks teams without their star point guard. But hey, man, it's the NBA. On any given day, one team can beat another because they're all pros. So that's our NBA update. Let's move on to the little white ball. Let's talk golf. This weekend they held the Players Championship, the 2024 Players Championship, and this is one of the tournaments that I really, really enjoy at Sawgrass. Wyndham Clark lip out on the 18th hole cost him $2.5 million at the 2024 Players Championship. If you guys watched it, and it was actually really exciting, and you say, well, if you're not a golfer, golf's not exciting. It's boring. It's great to sleep to. But, man, this tournament was really, really exciting. And Wyndham had a chance. He was 19 under. Scheffler was in the clubhouse at 20 under, and he needed to make a birdie putt to tie him at 20 under and force a playoff. And, man, the putt went down, and it swiveled around the hole and did almost a complete 360 and spun out of the hole, man. And that putt cost him $2.5 million. So let's talk about the winner. Scottie Scheffler wins the 2024 Players Championship, and he's the first repeat winner in the history of the PGA, the Players Championship. This was the 50th anniversary of the Players Championship, and in 50 years, they had never, ever had a repeat champion. And Scottie Scheffler becomes the first repeat winner in the history of the Players Championship. We're going to talk about this for a second. Okay, so Scheffler is the #1 golfer on the PGA Tour. Notice I said the #1 golfer on the PGA Tour. Notice that I didn't say the #1 golfer in the world. Now, some people might get rubbed the wrong way on that, but I'm sorry. He is the #1 golfer on the PGA Tour, and he very well could be the #1 golfer in the world, but we really don't know. We really don't know. But he is the #1 golfer on the PGA Tour, and he's done it again, shooting a final round 64. Man, that's blistering, man. That's the lowest round ever shot by a winner at the TPC Sawgrass, 64. Fred Couples did it. Davis Love did it. 64 on that course. That's blistering, man. To finish at 20 under, one shot ahead of 3 players, Wyndham Clark, Xander Schauffele, and Brian Harman. And also, this is Scheffler's winning. He was winning for the second week in a row. This is back-to-back wins for him in a row. Scheffler holed out an eagle 2 on the 4th hole par 4 on Sunday, and it propelled his round as he literally caught fire after that eagle 2. Afterwards, Scheffler started the day at 12 under par, 5 shots back on Sunday of Wyndham Clark and Xander Schauffele. Scheffler briefly considered pulling out of the tournament because he had a serious neck injury, but he gutted it out for the historic win. He has now won 8 times in 26 months. Now, I'm going to talk about that for a second, too. Now, there hasn't been a better iron player on the tour since Tiger Woods on the PGA Tour. The 27-year-old took home a cool a cool $4.5 million for 4 days' work. The biggest prize on the PGA Tour. Somebody say, thank you, Live Golf. Thank you, Live Golf. Get your kids out playing golf. Get your kids out playing golf. Now, I got to say this now, because Scotty Scheffler is an unbelievable golfer. But listen, he wins the Players back-to-back. It hasn't been done in 50 years. He also wins in consecutive weeks. And he's also won 8 times in the last 26 months. Now, Scotty Scheffler is a top golfer in the world. But I just got to tell you, man, when you don't have the best golfers in the world, because one of the things that the Players' Championship used to always advertise is we have the strongest and best field of any tournament. Even the majors, the best players come and play at the Players' Championship. And that's just not the case now. So, because... he won back-to-back. Nobody's done that in 50 years. Well, Jon Rahm wasn't there. Dustin Johnson wasn't there. Patrick Reed wasn't there. You get my point? You get my Swift? He's won 8 times in 26 months. That's because now these guys aren't playing against the best players in the world. I'm sorry. They just aren't. It is what it is. So when you start seeing these things that you ain't never seen before, that's because they're no longer playing against the best players. And that's not to say that the guys on the tour aren't good players. But I'm going to tell you something. There's no way Scotty Scheffler's supposed to win that tournament. Wyndham Clark and particularly Xander Schauffele should have won that golf tournament. But those guys choked. Both of them, particularly Xander Schauffele. But hey, man, I'm a golfer, and I choke too. Definitely I choke. But, man, I'm going to tell you something, man. Jon Rahm wouldn't have choked. Jon Rahm would have brought that baby home, man. Brooks Koepka wouldn't have choked. Look, man, it just is what it is. You're going to get a repeat winner at the Players' Championship that's never happened in 50 years because all the best players aren't there. He's going to win 8 times in 26 months because all the best players aren't there. And like I mentioned to you last week, when Rory finally wins the Masters and completes his Grand Slam, it may not be against the best players in the world. So the win is almost kind of going to be tainted. But hey, man, $4.5 million for 4 days' work. Get your kids out playing golf. Put a golf club in Suge Avery's hand. Y'all better get that girl onto the golf course. She'll pay for your retirement, precious. Let's move on to our last story. Carlos Alcaraz wins the 2024 Indian Wells Open. Alcaraz, and you know, Kimmy, you do know that this is just for you. You do know that, right, Kimmy? Carlos Alcaraz defends his Indian Wells title as he gets back in top form as he won 7-6 in 5 sets and 6-1 on Sunday to retain the BNP Paribas Open title. It's the 30-year-old's first title since he triumphed at Wimbledon last year. He entered the tournament with a 6-3 record on the season. The number 2 ranked Alcaraz emerged from a star-studded field in the California desert with the trophy and a restored confidence. Despite his ankle injury, he had been favoring before the tournament started. Despite the injury, the Spaniard showed incredible athleticism and great shot making that earned him fans across the globe. Medvedev lost 16 service games. He saved 7 out of 10 break points he faced against Alcaraz, but Alcaraz took a page out of Medvedev return book, standing well behind the baseline to take full cuts at the ball and immediately putting pressure on Medvedev. It was very athletic. It was a great match to watch. You know, it's a great one. We just want to say congratulations to Alcaraz, and he looks like he's back on track. When this guy is healthy, he is something to see. Hey, man, that's our show for today, man. We didn't have a poll question. We didn't have any trivia questions. Hey, listen, for a dynamic, in-depth analysis for the Washington football and DC sports team, be sure to check out my main man, Felix Bassi. with the Washington Sports Den on Thursdays at 2 p.m. on WBGR with Felix Bassett. Man, time flies when you're having fun. We're out of time here, but we sure do thank you for spending time with us. Remember, may the gates of heaven open and pour an abundance of blessings down on you where there won't be room enough for you to contain it. Remember, if you want it, you got to confess it with your mouth and believe it in your heart that Jesus died on the cross and that he rose on the third day, not a Thursday, just for you, so you could have your shining moment in the kingdom forever. Hey man, that's it. That's our show for today. Thank you for supporting us. We'll see you guys next Monday. God bless you. Have a good evening.
One shining moment about to blow up. I'm the bombing about to blow up. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Everybody sing it now. Whoa, whoa. Everybody sing it now. Whoa, everybody sing it now. Whoa. Okay, 1 for the money and a 2 for the show, but 3 to be a legend even if I'm poor. I ain't chasing nothing, you gon' have to catch me. And if you wanna taste, you gon' have to pay a fee. I'm the bomb and about to blow up. I'm the bomb and about to blow up.